We'll
Good
just
day,
go for it.
community. Pete Kane here, Podcast Pete, and certified high performance coach. And we got a special guest for you. So let him introduce you. So, Tobias, tell us who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and then we'll get into our podcast.
Gotcha. Well, like Pete, introduced me. I'm Tobias Spence. I'm a young father, young husband. Those are the main people that I serve on a daily basis. But I have a heart for genuinely anyone that is lacking resources, lacking connections, um, lacking mainly the main things that we need to survive. And
Hmm.
so I utilize that heart and that desire in a few different areas. One, serving children experiencing homelessness um, at
Hmm.
Atlanta Mission. So I did that for maybe three, 4 years, and
Hmm.
and that's when I ended up having my own child. And I was like, hey, let me step aside for a while, get a good grasp of this fatherhood thing. And so we did that for maybe a year. My heart for service was just
Yeah.
itching to, broaden what I was pouring my love out into. And so we ended up going to North Carolina, being house parents there for nearly a year. Had another child. We thought, okay, let's step back one more time. And now it's mainly serving people with my hands. And so that's
Yeah.
bringing light to their homes or whatever the case may be as an electrician. So,
Hmm. That's so good. So, I serve in the Rotary, and we have young and older people, but a lot of times it's people retire and then they go to serve because they want to give back. It's
mhm.
very unusual, I mean, percentage wise, that somebody like a young father, a young person, has a heart to serve. Where did that come from? When did you decide you were going to go down that path and you had that desire to serve?
Yeah. Um, Certain things I think are just natural. It's like I've always grown up being the person that if I see someone in a corner by themselves, I want to get that person involved, go sit next to them. So some of it I think was natural, but a lot of it I have to credit to my dad. Him
Hmm.
just being the one that modeled that to me everywhere we went. So whether it was giving someone the last that he had in his pocket or someone complimenting something that he had on and he just blesses them with it.
Hmm.
That instilled in me, and he used to actually say it also with his words that, son, Spencers are givers. We're people that bless others. And so I think it just kind of being natural, but also it being matured and molded by my dad and just seeing him walk it out, it definitely did nurture that thing, that natural just desire that I had in myself. So it's really both of those.
All right, that's good. And I know from we've had a lot of people that head up nonprofits on our podcast. It's not an easy thing to go through all the steps to form a nonprofit and to be have all the I's dotted, the T's crossed. What was that process like, and why did you want to go in that direction? Because it's more than just serving, you're serving at a highest level when you're putting a nonprofit, a 501c together.
Yeah. Again, I just have to. My dad is gonna love this. I have to give him more credit. Um,
Mhm.
my dad has an entrepreneurial spirit. He once he left the military, he had a plan and he executed it, and he just kept going at it until it came to fruition. And he would always tell me, "Hey, son, these ideas that you have, these aren't small ideas. You have to get these things basically planted so that they can start growing. And the best way to actually get it planted with a plan and with a business mindset um, is through an organization. Like don't limit yourself is basically what he was saying. And so because if you get the organization, you have to write a business plan for it. So you have to actually know where you're trying to go with this thing. You have
Mhm.
to know the end goal. So that's mainly what he meant by business. He wasn't saying capitalize off of it, but mainly just trying to get me to think differently. On that. Like, hey, this is how you actually create something. Stick to it. This is the plan. This is how you execute it. Write all that down. And like you said, it's not easy starting a nonprofit organization because
Yep.
you do have to get a lot of stuff in order, which my dad was a huge help even in that. He helped me through all the documents I had to fill out, everything. So I will
Wow.
say,
You have done some things, and I know you just from church, and I
mm,
want you to speak to our young families because it is very difficult to be involved in community and church when the
mm,
kids are so young because the demands on your time are precious. There's a lot of things going on. When you had your first boy, what was it like to start prioritizing things differently that you could maybe share with our young families that struggle with that balance?
yeah, it is. It is a shock, that's for sure. I want to make sure all the young parents for sure hear that part. That it definitely is not easy to go from being with your partner and now you have a human being that you have to take care of. Doesn't matter how many books you read, how many videos you watch, it is a shock. You've never heard a baby crying at 2 a.m. and having to, get milk ready for them and prep and all the things. And so I will say, though, that there's this natural phenomenon that happens when you become a parent where something just wakes up in you, where even though you haven't been through those situations before, it's this natural like grit and ability to learn it because you want to be a good caretaker of this human being that is yours. This is your
Mhm.
responsibility. And so um, it makes you think differently. You have to think outside of you know just your regular plans that you usually would have. Okay, well if I save X amount of money, well, then that allows me and my partner to be able to do this. But now you have to factor in something else, and you have to factor in this person is going to get bigger, so they're going to get hungrier, and they're going to get larger, so their clothes are going to start outgrowing them. They're going to start outgrowing their clothes, and so um, it's a steady journey, just like anything else. I wouldn't want the listeners to hear that you have to figure it out all at once. 'Cause even I don't have it all figured out. No parent does, but it
Yeah.
is a steady growth, a journey that you have to just kind of be one step ahead. You don't have to be 10, 15, but just
Mhm.
try to be one step ahead, and that'll get you where you need to be for sure.
Yeah. What do you think? Like, I remember, you have one. Um, I had girls, so I had one, and then you go to two, and it just kind of just totally
Woo.
changed everything because one you can kind of keep an eye on,
Yeah.
two it just it's what was
Hmm.
that like, you know, having your second boy and having to adjust, being the father role, the husband, provider, and just kind of
Yeah.
taking on additional responsibility because you now have two boys.
Yeah. It puts a little bit more strain and load, not just on my wife, who's usually with him, but myself as well, because going back to the first question that you brought up about being, someone that loves to serve others, that comes with a cost because you're constantly thinking about what the other person is having to endure. And sometimes when you can't actually do something about it, for example, if I'm at work and if I know now my wife isn't just with one child, she's with two, she's outnumbered. So now
Hmm.
I'm thinking, man, I hope they're not driving her crazy out. And so it adds that bit of a strain. And then when I get home and my wife wants to rest a little bit, it adds a strain to myself because now I'm outnumbered. And it's learning that balance. Like, okay, so
Hmm.
this is something that I can, leave my one child with, it can occupy him to be pretty much fine so that I can kind of pour into my youngest a little bit and even coming up with a balance between that because I don't want one to think that I'm favoring the other. It really is it is a shocker when you go from one to two. But the cool thing about it is you've been through the shock already with newborns and having to get diapers and much and all that. That stuff doesn't bother you at all anymore. It's like you don't even you don't even think twice about the stuff that you were so stressed about with your first child. When the second one comes along, you don't. It just rubs straight off your shoulders. So that's the good part.
Yeah.
The tough part is hey, it's two human beings now. So
Yeah. I had a friend, and he has 11 grandkids and two on the way. And he had a big family, 8 or 9. I think it's 8. But we were talking about how he was the least likely to have a family like that in high school. Every Because he was wild. He just was not like they didn't think he'd be the family man of 8 kids
yeah.
and going on 13 grandkids. But he said this. He goes, what changed him was when he was coming home from work and his oldest was 4 and he was like against the door and he could
Mm,
see daddy's home. He could read his lips. And he says it just absolutely grabbed his heart and totally got him just emotionally
mm,
connected to everything that was going on. He went on to have 7 more kids. Did you
mm,
feel like you had a transition of emotion when you go from you know, a parent or dad,
mm.
then you have your first child. Did you have any of those magical moments when your son just looks at you with his eyes and says, "Daddy"?
Man, too many. That's why I want more because for that reason.
Yeah.
But man, I've always wanted to be a dad,
Uh-huh.
always because when you have parents that do their roles well, you
Yeah.
desire to be in a role such as that one, so that you can pass down the love that was given you. You can pass it on down. And I was, ever since I was a young boy, I was like, man, I'm gonna be like my dad when I grow up. I'm gonna take my sons to the park. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. And so, when I first laid eyes on my son, I didn't
Yeah.
really get emotional right away. What made me emotional is when I started praying for him, and
Hmm.
just, because I was praying for him in the hospital, and I was just thinking, like, man, this is the first day of a long journey, and while I was praying for him, I was thinking ahead, and he's gonna get big. What is he gonna look like? What is he? It's gonna be his favorite toy. It's gonna be his favorite color. I want to get activities. Is he gonna? And that definitely does create, like you said, just something it grips your heart.
Yeah.
You know, this is life. You think life is just you're at the pinnacle of it until a new gift is introduced to you, and you're like, whoa, I didn't even I didn't even touch like the pinnacle of life. Yeah, I haven't even gotten close. Like there's so much more out there, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to a friend. He used to go to him and his wife, and he has a little boy, and I think he's like
Hmm.
about 2.5, 3. But he was telling me that they moved up to Virginia. That his prayer life
Hmm.
has gone to like the next level and then some.
Yeah.
And it, he says, not only do I have a son, but I have care for my wife. And he said,
Yeah.
I've never had a prayer life like I have now.
Hmm.
Do you have you seen like your prayer life get more intense or go to another level when kids started to becoming part of the family?
Yes, I think that's God's reasoning for even giving us these gifts in the first place, because whenever we receive something that is going to cause us to have to be responsible, it does put an added weight on yourself. And many times that's exactly what God wants us, because He doesn't want us carrying that weight all on our own. It creates a dependency upon Him, and a humility to where you know right away when a kid gets back from the hospital, you know right away, I cannot do this alone. That's the reason why we have, the phrase that it takes a village to raise a child. You can't do it alone.
Yep.
And so, whether it's, a husband, especially a young husband like myself, um, trying to carry the load between being the provider, being the priest of the home, being the protector, doing these things. Like, this is a weight that I cannot carry on my own. So I have to go to them that I rely on, and the way that we communicate with them through prayer. So I'm constantly praying. And
Mm,
so, yes, it elevates your prayer life for sure. For
well,
sure.
yeah. When you're hopefully you'll be coming to our Rotary on Thursday, but our Congressman Barry Laudermill came and spoke, and a friend of mine won his book, and the book was "And Then They Prayed," and it was a history book, and then he had tied in the importance back, when George Washington and the Civil War, how important
Mhm.
prayer was in the lives of the people in the book. I couldn't put it down. I mean, I finished it the other day. I'm not a speed reader, but I've gotten a
Yeah.
little bit better. But
Mhm.
you forget that our country was founded, on those Christian principles and God we
Yeah.
trust and prayer,
Mhm.
and you don't see it in normal history books, but this
Yeah.
book was an incredible book of the
Mhm.
power. And he says, and then there was prayer, and how many times these people, George Washington, different people, I mean, they hit their
Mhm.
knees and they just started praying when
Yeah.
when they were just involved in a conflict, like it was
Yeah.
too much to handle, so they had to rely on God, and they prayed. So, what would you like speaking to like people that are out there? I really have a heart for young families because there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things tugging at us, whether it's social media, just the different things that are going on.
Yeah.
Could you speak to them about how you keep your priorities in the best place for you to be, not distracted and just falling into culture, which is real easy to do.
Mhm.
How do you do it? Is it your prayer life? give our viewers a little idea from a young person's perspective, young dad.
Yeah. First, I would say I'm not perfect in this area. I think there's times where even I, not even I, but myself, I get distracted as well. But to limit that distraction, I would say that because I'm not distracted as much. To limit that distraction, it is find truly finding something else that you see value in that you can pour your time into. Because the the studies and the proof is in the pudding when it comes to us being distracted by so many things that are just flooding our telephones that it creates it creates basically my grandmother would say my person's like a still pond. They ain't moved all week. All right, well, I hear you, Grandma. I don't know what you mean by that, but okay. But that's basically what it creates in our minds and our creative thinking. These things go dormant. They're not being matured. They're not being nurtured. They're not being raised up in any way because they're not being exercised. And so it is truly finding something else. It's not just saying, all right, I'm gonna put this down and that's it. You have to replace it with something. And the avenues that I found have been best for me is one, obviously, my kids and my wife, but also fellowship. Fellowship. Get around people that are also on the same wavelength as you. They are trying to limit their distractions and they're trying to exercise whatever it is that they have within themselves so that it may grow, they may exercise it. Finding and really thinking about, what is it that I can contribute to my neighborhood? If you spend 5 minutes on that thought a day, something's going to come out of it. And at that point, it's up to you to say, okay, how can I actually start taking tangible steps towards this change? And comes with you that is through community, getting around other people that have that same heart for that same thing, that same issue, so usually issues and problems that we're trying to solve, finding people that see that same issue and they have a desire to solve it. That
Mm.
limits our distractions because now you're putting your attention towards something else, but you're also using your attention for good and it's growing something, it's developing something, which just sharpens your mind, it sharpens your heart for people, it makes you more reliant because now you have more responsibility onto something, which is then going to make you more dependable on God, which is then going to make you pray, which is then going to give you more desire to go out and exercise, and it creates a more productive cycle instead of being just fear, which we find, sadly, a lot of our young generation at the moment.
It's so good. I had Joel Crumbly on about 2 weeks ago, and I noticed like when him and his wife, like they come into church, it's like joy's coming in. And I see you and Cheyenne the same way. And he told me this: he doesn't own a TV, like he doesn't watch
Mhm.
TV. And I'm going, and
Yeah.
I did away with TV. I did away with social media. I did away with all these distractions, and I don't drink
Yeah.
because I'm trying to repair my brain. So I was real
Yeah.
sensitive to what was coming in. But I
Yeah.
found a joy that I never really knew about because
Mhm.
somebody explained it this way: when we were on social media, we're liking, commenting, or sharing. So we're always making these judgment things. We're putting our brain through judgment. Is it likable? Do I comment? Do I share it? And so it
Mm.
taxes our brain along with
Yeah.
the average person in America watches 4 hours of TV. So we're consuming a big portion of our day in social
Mhm.
media and TV. That's if you look at the stats, it's 5 to 6 hours a day. And then you'll ask, then they'll say they're too busy to call mom or too busy to call
Yeah.
their brother, their sister, a friend. And it's our society is just pulled us into consumption. How do
Yeah.
you balance media and the creating part of us, because I think we're born to create our
Yeah.
hands, create with our hands. I know we talked about you being very wanting to be hands on and do things with your hands.
Mhm.
How do you kind of balance all these distractions with consumption versus creating?
Yeah. We actually don't own a TV either. We
Really?
Yeah, we don't. We sold our TV, I don't know, maybe like a year ago now. It was mainly for the purposes of our son. We didn't want him being
Yeah.
raised on TV and all things because just too many studies about how that's not helpful to their
Yep.
small developing brains and whatnot. And so to take the temptation out of the house, we were like, "Ah, let's get rid of it." And so that's been huge for us because, you know, yes, you can distract yourself just as much with a phone, but for me, I get tired of looking at a phone. I don't. I love people interaction.
Yeah.
I'm probably different from the average person in that, but I love people interaction.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, my dad, he modeled that for me. He brought me around people. I was talking to all ages of people while I was young. I was able to hold conversations, and I just love it. So it is getting rid of the TV. That was huge for us because when we had it, we were glued to it, and it this desire to be around people and getting tired of looking at my phone. Put those two things together, you find opportunity to go out and do something. And
Yeah.
so then it's just taking that inventory and seeing how you're wired.
Yeah.
Once you figure that out, all right, well, get out there and do it.
Yeah. That's so good. A lot of times you hear that our younger people are on their phones so much that they lose that connection and that interaction. I've had
Yeah.
two hernia surgeries, and both of them I'm in the waiting room of this clinic. And
Mm-hmm.
it's if you have a hernia, it's usually older people.
Yep.
Well, there was 18 people in this waiting room. 16 of them were glued to their phone. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, these are older people, probably anywhere from 65 to 75. So it's not just young, it's all
Yeah. It's
ages.
not.
You go to a restaurant, it's not, you see people, the couple are out there and they're both on their phones. They're not talking,
Yeah.
they're just on a
Yep.
phone. I don't know. And I think it's so easy to fall into that and lack those conversations. I want to get back to like what you're doing. Why did you choose like electrical? Did you like that field because of hands on and just doing something with your hands? What was the
Mhm.
decision that you went down that route?
Yes. So um, I was. It was in a season where I was done working in tourism ministry because I had two kids, and I just felt like it was time. And I had to take some inventory, like I said earlier. And once I took that inventory and was able to just self-reflect, I knew that there's been something that I loved. Just I don't know if there's more than people interaction, but it's either equal or it's smidge above, and it's working with my hands. And so I did some research. All right, so what areas is it that I can put this thing to work? Initially, I was leaning more towards carpentry, maybe building homes or some along that nature. But because I've always been afraid of electricity, not a healthy fear. I just had a fear of it. I never touched it. I would always call somebody over to the house if we had an electrical issue. I didn't even try to fix it. Everything else I would fix myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I just started researching it, started looking into it, started reading books on it, and I was like, I actually like this a lot more because you're not only using your hands, but you're using your brain. Like
Yeah.
there's so much that goes into it, and that's with every trade. But when it came to electrical work, it was this part of my brain that I felt like was dormant for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started just getting the clouds, like, man, you know, this is electrifying. I love this. No pun intended. This is electrifying. I love this. I want to do this. And so after that, I just started applying myself, trying to get apprenticeships and get jobs with an electrical company. And now my desire has went from being a electrician that is in the home, which I still would love to do if that's the only thing that I can do, to going more towards the utility route. So that's, lineman work, underground lineman work, something in the utility side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, as we get into AI, there's certain occupations that will be in demand, and the
Mm,
electrical occupation, because of data centers, all the
yeah,
infrastructure that we're going to have to put the lines underground as opposed to lines
mm,
above ground. So there's going to be such a demand for that type of
yeah,
skill. So I want to encourage, like, our community. um, you've heard a lot of Tobias's story. If you know people that you know can use somebody of his character and skill level, pass this video on to him and introduce him to them. So I'm a firm believer it's people to people. It's one person knowing another person. The old resume is kind of the old way of doing things. It's people to
yeah,
people. So I want to
yeah,
be respectful of your time, because I know with two boys and it's at the end of
yeah.
the day. Tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of you? And then I have one more question.
Yes, sir. So yeah, you can get a hold of me. I have social media platforms, um, Facebook. That's just my name, Tobias Spence. It's the same thing on Instagram as well. Or you can
Hmm.
email me at tobiasspence84 at gmail.com. That's the number 84 at gmail.com.
Okay.
That's probably the best way to get a hold of
Okay.
me. So,
Awesome. We'll put it in the show notes. And so as we close down, what would be the one thing that you would want our viewers to take home from our time on this podcast?
yeah. The one thing is that whether you're a parent, single, or you may just be getting to high school, you're not a high school, getting to college, whatever it is, we all have responsibilities and gifts and
Oops, you're frozen. We may come back, but you're frozen right now. So oh, wait a second. If Tobias doesn't become unfrozen, we'll wind it down and we'll make sure we get the audio right, and we'll give you some more. So I think for some reason we're having a bad reception at the end here. So Tobias, thank you so much for spending time